Well, welcome to Policy Pod from Colegau Cymru. We've been looking at each of the 5 policy arcs for the next Welsh Government as part of the lead-up to the Senedd elections in May. In this episode, we'll be discussing the theme, which looks at the Welsh language. Before we get into the conversation, we need to do some introductions. I'm Iestyn Davies, Chief Executive of Colegau Cymru, and joining me today to discuss the topic further is Lowri Morgans of Coleg Cymraeg Cenedlaethol and David Evans, Chief Executive of Grŵp Cymru Rhomenau. Welcome to you both. The theme of today's discussion is the Welsh language and how this runs through each of the Colegau Cymru policy recommendations. The further education sector has a duty to promote the Welsh language and to place it at the heart of teaching, learning and delivery. So to recap, regarding the Welsh language, we are calling on the next Welsh Government to facilitate access to a first level 3 qualification for all adults aged up to and including 25, and for that to be available through the medium of Welsh. We're calling on them to digitise learning materials to avoid digital and linguistic marginalisation and exclusion. We want them to work with us to provide comprehensive support services through the medium of Welsh language, to provide mental health training and provision through the medium of Welsh as well. And in line with the ask to introduce a professional development programme, including the introduction of QTS status or similar for further education practitioners, to provide options for study through the medium of Welsh and for the Welsh language to be an integral part of all PGC and Cert Ed training programmes. To find out more about policy asks, please visit the colegau.cymru website, where you'll be able to find this and other podcasts as part of this series. David, how important is it that FE learners have the opportunity to study their courses, academic and vocational, through the Welsh language? Isn't it the case that actually the language of work is English? So actually we shouldn't really need to perhaps to invest in this way in our FE colleges.
Well, firstly, Welsh Government have set an ambitious target of 1 million speakers, and I think we're all buying into that. And that does include employers. And many employers now are looking to develop bilingual services. Several employers wish to have a Welsh medium working environment. A good example would be Portmeirion, for example. So I think that employers are starting now to really see the value of offering a bilingual service, but I'm not sure that that message has yet reached perhaps our young people, and that they don't yet see it as an asset and a skill asset that they will have of being totally bilingual in their vocational qualification.
So how do we build better bridges between young people leaving school and entering college and help them understand the importance of Welsh language skills?
Well, I think that there's a job of work to be done there, and one of the things I would like to see us doing in conjunction with the Coleg Cymraeg Cenedlaethol is getting more employers on board and creating a kind of an employers forum, as it were, that would be, their mantra would be to promote the Welsh language in the workplace. I think there's a piece of work there, because I think that the voice of the employer is going to be far, far stronger than any target set by Welsh Government. And if young people recognise that there is a job opportunity by following a bilingual course, that is far more attractive than meeting a Welsh Government target.
Or mum and dad tell them they should do it as well, I'd imagine. Is it the case that perhaps some young people see the end of compulsory after 16 years of education as an opportunity to leave Welsh language programmes?
Unfortunately, yes, that's what we do see. We have many young people leaving Welsh medium schools, but yet it takes a lot of persuading for them to carry on with their studies through the medium of Welsh. And I think that is quite a challenge, and I think that's when a bilingual course really comes into its own.
Lowri, we've already seen the development of resources and opportunities in the FE sector. One of the responsibilities of Coleg Cymraeg Cenedlaethol is support the provision of work-based learning. Are there any specific challenges in delivering work-based learning when that learner isn't in a college environment, it's in a working environment, receiving both instruction, demonstration and assessment often, as well as obviously being caught up in the general day-to-day work of the employer?
Yeah, definitely there is a challenge, because there's more pieces to that jigsaw, if you like, that needs to have those Welsh language skills to be able to deliver and assess through the medium of Welsh. But there's a great deal of support available to practitioners now. You know, we've talked about the resources that's available to them. We've created over 150 resources as part of the project this year for the priority sectors, for example, and there are lots of resources on our Porth Adnoddau, the resources portal, that anybody can access in the post-16 sector. There's also hands-on support for staff as well. You know, we fund the staff training programme and the mentoring programme that Skiliaeth provides on our behalf. So that's on-hand training for staff to be able to embed and use Welsh within their teaching and assessing, and hints and tips then how to do that. And there's also the Cymraeg Gwaith project through the National Centre of Learning Welsh that Colega Cymru coordinate on our behalf as well. So this training then helps improve and upskill the staff's Welsh language skills along the continuum. So that's really important. And I think, you know, the strategy that we've got for the post-16 sector, you know, this strategy targets everybody. It's not just those learners who come from Welsh medium schools, but it's everybody. Those including, you know, that have come from the Welsh second language background as well, and everybody on the linguistic continuum to reach the million. So, you know, this sector is vital to create the workforce of the future. Healthcare, childcare workers, for example, and as David mentioned, you know, future business leaders as well. So it's a case of use it or lose it with the language, and those skills need to be maintained, and that's both for staff, learners and apprentices as well.
And David, how confident are often Welsh-speaking lecturers in using their Welsh language skills actually in the classroom or lecture theatre?
I think there is a significant number of our lecturers who have Welsh language skills which are perfectly adequate and more than adequate to deliver Welsh medium training, but they just don't have the confidence to do so because they've traditionally done it perhaps through the medium of English. They just see it as a bit of a mental barrier almost to be delivering through the medium of Welsh. And I think that there is a role there somewhere in terms of creating opportunities and support and training just to get over that barrier. It isn't really it isn't a skills issue. It's more of a confidence issue that they need to get over. And there are significant numbers within the FE workforce who would fall into that category.
And the Cymraeg Gwaith project, as well as the work Skiliaeth has been doing for some time now, is aiming to bring those pedagogical skills and language skills together to help reinforce the provision of Welsh medium programs in our FE colleges. Lowry, is there any evidence that actually we are starting to see a greater use of Welsh language skills or availability of Welsh language skills and confidence in our FE workforce?
Yes, definitely. I think, you know, we're going into the 5th year now of running the Cymraeg Gwaith programme for the FE sector. There's definitely been a shift in confidence. You know, we've still got a long way to go, but through the case studies that we're seeing the impact not only on the individuals and their own language skills being developed, but the impact of that on the classroom and also the apprentices that they are supporting. So we definitely need to do more work there in getting those really good news stories, the case studies out to the sector as well, because, you know, it's success that we need to be celebrating as well.
Elsewhere in our policy asks, David, we talk about strengthening and renewing the initial teacher training and lecturer training for our FE workforce. Is there a case, and is there an argument to be made about ensuring that Welsh language understanding, provision and capacity to teaching Welsh is included as an integral part in the potentially a new PGT qualification?
Absolutely. I think that the embedding the Coleg Cymraeg Cenedlaethol's strategy, the pyramid, as Lowry has mentioned, into that TAR qualification would be a major step forward. And I think a full understanding of that pyramid and that there is a role for the Welsh language within every single course in Wales. And if we can reinforce that at the very early stage and get over these barriers that people have about delivering through the medium Welsh during their training, I think that will be far easier than perhaps trying to persuade some of our longer in the tooth lecturers to actually have to adapt their delivery methodology. So I think we're starting down from the bottom there is critical.
And that seems to hint at a very different kind of model of Welsh language delivery. So I guess the question I'm interested in asking is there a difference, and if there is, what is the difference between Welsh medium education programs, David, and those programs which are bilingual? And how do we ensure that all FE learners have an opportunity to experience and use whatever Welsh they've got on that continuum through an FE learning program? Or is it a case of keeping the two totally separate and never the twain shall meet?
Well, I would hope that what we all have is a vision of a fully bilingual Wales, not a monolingual Welsh Wales. And therefore, I do believe that bilingual courses are the way forward. And that then avoids the kind of the impasse that the individual, when leaving school, has to make some choice about, am I going English medium or am I going Welsh medium? The vast majority of courses by now in Grŵp Llanryddiaeth are bilingual, which means that within a group of learners, you could have an individual doing 20% through the medium of Welsh and 80% through the medium in English, and sitting next to him or her, a person doing 80% in Welsh and 20% through the medium of English. And we are very keen that all our learners develop language skills in both Welsh and English. So I'm a great advocate of bilingual delivery rather than really of Welsh medium, if I'm honest. And I think then that takes the stigma away of having to ask the young person, do you want to do this provision through the medium of Welsh or through the medium of English? Everybody does it bilingually, just that the mix is slightly different depending on your linguistic skills.
Louis, the experience of many of us during COVID, indeed we're recording this podcast via Zoom today, has been a greater use of obviously technology, video conferencing, and obviously in our schools and colleges, the introduction of blended learning and digital distance learning. Does that offer any opportunity for us in terms of helping to upskill our Welsh language and bilingual workforce in our colleges?
Yes, definitely. I mean, the pandemic has proved that, we've had to work differently and been studying differently as well from home, for example. And it's also provided opportunities as well as challenges for Welsh speaking staff and learners as well. There's a lack of digital resources, as we mentioned earlier, which we are starting to work together to try and make a difference there with the 150 resources that's been created as a result of the blended learning project. But it's also been easier to bring people together. So as part of that project, we've set up the social care and childcare network for practitioners. So being able to bring them around the virtual room together has been far easier than if we were traveling, and working the way we were before the pandemic. So bringing those practitioners together to get them to speak about their practice, the challenges, opportunities that they've faced together, sharing resources as well, working through these barriers together as well has been really empowering. And we've also created the public services network as well. And it's been a real opportunity to put this strategy to work. As David mentioned earlier, we need flexibility in the strategy and the pyramid model that we've been talking about as well. Language skills levels, vary from college to college. And also they vary from the classroom. We need to be planning at that level, really. So there's definitely been an opportunity to bring people together in a far easier way than the way we were working beforehand.
And David, your Grŵp Llanryddiaeth experience, of course, is one of a number of colleges, often quite separate from each other within the single group. Is it always easy to get lecturers to collaborate and work together and share the best practice?
I wouldn't have said it's always in the culture of lecturers to be sharing resources. They do have a sense of ownership very often about their personal resources. It is something that we've been trying to encourage within our group, across the colleges. But I think that, especially in the context of Welsh medium, I think those who, they see that as very much an opportunity, and that it would be a major missed opportunity if we weren't sharing Welsh media resources together. And I think that the work that Coleg Cymraeg Cenedlaethol are doing there in terms of collating and providing a hub of bilingual resources is absolutely critical. And although naturally Laurie has said that, you know, that the 150 pieces of resources already created, that, to be honest, though, I'm sure she'd also recognise is still only scratching the surface of the amount of resources that are required to have a fully bilingual vocational curriculum across all our SSAs.
Definitely. And also, you know, those 150 resources are only within the priority sectors, you know, and obviously we haven't even started on the other sectors as well. So, you know, definitely there's a huge amount of work to be done there.
David, in further education and also within work-based learning and apprenticeship frameworks, there's a real strong, important focus on the qualification. We know in further education, we have a very limited time to work with our learners, particularly when they transition from school to college. We hope that many will come back later in life as part of their culture of lifelong learning. But for the initial period, we've got 2 years, and the qualification is incredibly important in that 2-year period. Do you think our current provision of qualifications supports or maybe even hinders the development of Welsh language teaching and outcomes?
There's no doubt, Justin, that the current scenario certainly hinders the situation. I think as we've seen many of the awarding bodies in England become private companies, we've seen therefore less of an appetite from those companies to be supporting Welsh medium resources, which naturally is a marginal market. And therefore, if it's not cost effective, then that is not appealing to their shareholders. And therefore, I think Welsh Government have got to take one of two views here. Either they've got to throw much more resources at those companies to subsidise the Welsh medium resources, or else we've got to take control of the situation ourselves in Wales and have a vocational awarding body which would deliver Welsh qualifications with the bilingual resources that are required.
And Laurie, are there any particularly difficult or problematic areas in terms of our qualification offer that make it more difficult to deliver Welsh language teaching and learning or bilingual teaching and learning? You talked about obviously the priority areas. I imagine they are well served. Are there other important areas perhaps that are not so well served?
Well, it's an assumption as well to make that the priority areas are well served, because actually they're not. You know, as we've heard, that agriculture is one of the priority areas, and as David mentioned, you know, it's pretty much a Welsh medium sector, and unfortunately it is a challenge to have agriculture vocational courses available through the medium of Welsh. So, you know, the qualifications is one aspect of it. But also, as I mentioned earlier on, you know, there's a bigger jigsaw to this as well. You need the learner to be able to have the Welsh language skills to be able to be assessed with the medium of Welsh. You need the tutor to deliver, and you also need an assessor as well. And also, when you think about qualifications, you need that external examiner as well, who's able to examine again through the medium of Welsh. So it's not just the translation of qualifications either, it's the whole package of it, and that is quite a challenge. It's easier, if you like, just to translate the qualification, but when you think about the whole package, it's quite a complex picture.
And if I can pay tribute as well, Iestyn, to some of the staff who really go the extra mile in order to overcome some of those barriers, in order to be able to offer a bilingual curriculum to our learners. You know, it is a significantly extra workload. They do get some recognition for it in terms of hours, etc., but nothing like the commitment that they show. And while I thank them, I still say I don't think that the agenda can move forward on that kind of dependency on the goodwill of individuals who have the Welsh language at heart, willing to do it. I think it's got to be far more systematic and more structured than that.
As we wrap up then, we've talked a lot about the classroom or the lecture theatre or the workshop, or indeed the employer where we are working with apprentices. Thinking beyond that sort of direct education environment, how important, David, is it, do you think, that we are able to provide support services for mental health and well-being, recreational, cultural opportunities, sporting opportunities? How important is it we can provide those to the Welsh language, and particularly really focusing on the needs of those Welsh language speakers in receiving their personal support for the medium of Welsh?
Well, as you know, that I think the last 12 months has been very challenging for many young people in the lockdown, and many of our learners have suffered from mental health issues. We at Grŵp Rhythm have appointed now around 6 well-being officers to support the mental health of our learners, and we have insisted that they are bilingual, because we feel very strongly that to address a student who is crying out for help, that needs to be done through the language of their choice and through their first language. And I think the support that you're able to give then is far, far stronger. And actually the fact that we've asked for those roles through the medium of Welsh, I think is an example of the job opportunities that do come up, going back to our first point at the beginning of this conversation, of there are roles out there which are crying out for bilingual skills.
Laurie, the Coleg Cymraeg Cenedlaethol Ambassador Programme has been about obviously supporting and encouraging participation in Welsh language programmes. How else does it support the Welsh language learner and bilingual learner?
Yeah, the ambassador program is going from strength to strength, really. And you know, it's lovely to see these ambassadors getting together and promoting the services and the resources that's available to them, and studying bilingually as well, and influencing each other about you know, why they should be studying bilingually as well. And the Minister for Welsh Language also visited a college virtually to see the ambassadors programme at work. And I think it's really important that she's also responsible for mental health and well-being. And there's a focus on wanting to accommodate Welsh language services. And I think this is definitely to be welcomed as well.
Well, some very, very interesting examples from Coleg Cymraeg Cenedlaethol and Grŵp Rhythm as a representative of the FE sector in how we are trying to mainstream and create opportunities for both Welsh medium and bilingual teaching and learning opportunities across our network of FE colleges. So diolch yn fawr I chi'ch ddau am gyfrannu. Thank you to you both for contributing. I'm really excited to see how this agenda works out. And obviously doing our bit as the FE sector to reach this target of 1 million Welsh speakers. Diolch yn fawr i chi'ch ddau.